Hello and welcome to the Content Advantage, a talk show about content for content professionals. I'm Scott Abel, the Content Wrangler. With me today is my co-host, Megan Gilhooly.
Hey, Scott, how are you doing?
Good. Thanks for joining us again. I appreciate it.
Yes, it's good to see you.
Nice
Hey,
to
I
see you.
wanted to introduce our esteemed guests. So today we are going to be talking about privacy, security, and trust. And these are really, really hot topics. So we've brought an overall good guy and customer experience master, Tim Hayden. And Tim is a consultant in marketing, advertising, and management, and also the CEO of Brain+Trust. So we will be talking about things like privacy regulations and the death of the third-party cookie and really fun stuff like that. So Tim, thanks so much for joining us.
We're going to need a bigger truck, aren't we, Megan? I mean, that's
We
a whole
might.
lot. Yeah,
we got a lot
yeah.
to unpack. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
No, great to be here with you and Scott. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome. Hey, before we jump into the interview, Tim, let me tell our audience just a few quick things. First, today's show is being recorded. So if you'd like to dive out of the show or if you've got a reason you can't stay for the whole thing, don't worry. We'll send you a link about 30 minutes after the show is over. That will allow you to return to the same URL that you're using to watch today's live show. And it'll turn into a recording that you can watch on demand or share with others. And we hope that you will. Also, we can't see or hear you. Despite the fact that you can see and hear us, we do not have access to your camera or to your microphone, so there's no worries there. You can ask a question of myself, Megan, or Tim at any time by using the Ask a Question feature located in your webinar viewing panel. It's a text-based feature that allows you to text a message to us. We cannot text you back, but we will receive your text and we'll know that you've got a question. I'll try to monitor them and slide them into the conversation as the time allows. Also, you can access additional content about our presenters and myself and Megan as well. Contact information provided by us that might be useful to you in the attachments section of your webinar viewing panel. During the show, at any time, you can jump over to the attachments section, click on any of those links, download documents, or visit additional content we've provided for you on the web. And on the way out the door, I'll ask you this at the end of the show to give us a 1 through 5 star rating, with 5 being the high star rating. There's also a little field that allows you to provide feedback to let you know, to let us know how we did today on today's show. Today's show is also brought to you by Zoomin Software, and we'll talk a little bit about them later.
Great. So before we dive in, Tim, we want to hear a little bit about you. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do and how that pertains to building direct and personal customer experiences?
Absolutely. As you already shared with everybody, I'm the CEO of Brain+Trust and Brain+Trust Partners. We're also a member of the Next Practice, which is a holding company that was started by Bob Pearson. That's just as recent as July 1st. But we at Brain+Trust, we believe that things really start and end with data. We think data governance is, high atop the list of brands today. And what we think is that, and I say this as a recovering mobile strategist. I won't go into my career or give in my bio, but I spent about 10 years in a role where I was providing mobile strategy to clients. And it was there that I realized that we have this peer-to-peer connection with our customers. And when people pull that device out of their pocket, when they put it in front of their face, they expect it to be personalized,
right,
or contextually relevant, I think is another term you and I've used before, Megan. But
yeah.
Bottom line, it comes down to how you govern data and how you leverage the insights that you have about your customers to provide both personalized experiences, as I was just saying, but even better, all the things that go into a direct relationship with that. And we'll get into that today, I'm sure, but it's really about unfettered, seamless, frictionless experiences that your customers have. The biggest brands in the world right now that continue to have growth during the pandemic are the ones that are doing this already.
Yeah.
I think every company has an opportunity to go out there and build the same type of operation.
Excellent. And we all know that personalized experiences are not only trendy and kind of the hot thing to try to do today, but they're the right thing to do, right? Because we're all consumers as well. We understand when we have an individualized experience, it feels better for us. And then, of course, we might even feel delight, right? Because we feel like, wow, the brand is really paying attention to me. They're serving up content that's just for me. But then privacy enters the equation and throws a big kink into our plans. Why do we need to talk about personalization and privacy?
Well, I think that's the big thing that everybody's having to take a look at now, most recently with the California Consumer Privacy Act. That's a law that went into effect on January 1st or thereabouts, first week of January this year. And then the Attorney General Becerra in California, he and his office did not actually start to enforce it until July 1st of this year. What this does, there's about 27 states here in the U.S. that have modeled different laws, many of them after global data privacy regulations that came out of Europe 3.5, 4 years ago. Well, there's three things you need to think about here: that you have to put the customer in control. You have to allow them to see the data you have on them. It's no longer just about accepting a cookie or unsubscribing or subscribing to an email newsletter. It's about them having the rights now by law to come in and see how you take care of their data, to ask you to pause using it, or even more so, to delete all the data that you have on them. There's more to it than that in terms of how companies sell your data to other companies and the way you have to disclose that to the customers. But I think that's a blessing, and that's why I love talking about it, because you really can't deliver personalized experiences unless you're governing your data per the rigors of those laws.
Yeah, and I would imagine that the regulatory landscape changing now triggers changes for all the software providers that we rely on in order to connect to the people that we want to build experiences for. And that's probably also one of the reasons why it's taken so long to implement and enforce the law, is that it takes a little time for everybody to adjust to it. Have you seen companies start to do that, start to make adjustments to their approaches that comply with the regulations? Are they noticeable changes?
Yeah, they're definitely noticeable changes. I mean, you start to see companies like Asana, who is a consent management platform. If you're on a website that's using Asana, pardon me, if you're on a website that's using them, it will come in and give you a view of all the systems where your data exists. That's powerful. That's powerful. There's something Megan said earlier. It's about trust. Being very transparent with your customers to let them know where their data is being used. So the consent management's one piece of it. The other piece of it is data unification and entity resolution. In order, being able to connect all of your systems to a data lake or a customer data platform, a cloud-based platform that can make sense of a person's identity with different email addresses, a Facebook ID, different devices they've used, different payment methods they've used over time, to be able to build one single record for that customer. Well, that's the one big thing. And that happens with entity resolution, is once you've connected everything, now you allow machine learning to go in and say, that person with that Facebook ID has also from that device used this email address, and be able to suddenly build a singular view of the customer. And obviously that empowers everything we've already talked about in terms of personalization and the first steps you really need in terms of fulfilling or complying with privacy.
Hey, Tim, I want to kind of double click on something that you said there a while back.
Please do.
Mentioned that that complying with these regulations will actually help us in personalization. But when I think about it from the standpoint of where technical writers or other folks who might not be completely up on this topic might come at it from, that's almost counterintuitive. We think we need that data, that very personal data, in order to personalize. So I assume that this has to do with first-party cookies versus third-party cookies, but can you kind of explain the relationship there?
Well, you ended on cookies there. I'll start there. Google has announced that they are going to stop supporting the third-party cookie. There's a whole lot to unpack in what that means, and that's probably a different webinar. Yes. But that and what iOS 14 which is just about 3 weeks old out in the marketplace. iOS 14, not yet, but will gradually get more teeth. If you watch football on Sundays or Saturdays, you'll see commercials from Apple telling you how private the experience is on your iPhone. Yes, if you've been in digital marketing, perhaps if you're a technical writer, if you've been in digital marketing for the last decade plus, unfortunately, you've been relegated to media performance in your role.
Right.
You've gone there and looked at clicks and open rates and what Google Analytics is telling you is happening and what Facebook and the parties you use for content management and social analysis, social media analysis. You've gone on that as part of your KPI mix. I do believe all marketers are held to sales. I do believe that most marketers, if they're not there yet, they're going to get there quick or be out of a job, right? But part of that KPI view has been, unfortunately, the performance of media. Performance of media is a great leading indicator. But to the second part of what you just asked there, Megan, is what do we do with survey data? What do we do when we do open text and open field questions that we put in front of our customers? What do we do with call logs from call centers to be able to digitize those and make the text from those real live human conversations and analyze that text?
Or the phone.
What's that?
Or the phone calls for that.
Or that's what I mean is the phone calls is how do we do this, right? So, there's a whole lot at stake here. If you follow me, I can easily digress in one direction or another in terms of all the things you'd have to think about. But it is about, through every customer experience, every customer engagement, you have an opportunity to learn a little bit more about them, to ask them questions, not just look if they opened the email, not just look if they clicked on the ad or they shared what you put out on your blog or Facebook. Right. And that's where we are right now. That's where we are right now. It has to be more meaningful, and we have to be very serious about taking information and being very responsible with how we use the information, both for business performance in terms of profits, in terms of revenue growth, but also in terms of meeting the demands of privacy.
So I think technical writers need to think about how we get analytics, right? We need to think about maybe not relying just on Google Analytics, but having other analytics tools that will help us that are more direct, right?
I think so. I mean, this is where when you think about customer service, and this is something Zoomin Software does very well in terms of being able to learn in iteration about what customers are looking for and making sure they find the most relevant information, the most contextual information that they need in that customer support type situation. Well, in that situation, we have to think about, and again, this is the recovering mobile strategist in me, is saying that whether they're on the phone in that moment or they have the phone right next to them because it's at arm's length 23 and a half hours a day, at that moment, we need to ask them to be able to answer some questions and to leave us with some user-generated content, ratings, reviews, photos, video. These are things that our customers have the ability to do with that 4K or that HD production studio in their pocket. We need to capture that content and that feedback, and we need to leverage that in terms of the customer records we keep and the analysis, to your point, Megan, that a technical writer, a content strategist needs to decide what to do next, right? Where they need to tell stories or where there's opportunities to.
Tim, it seems like you gave our Twitter participants, because there's definitely some in our audience that like to tweet about what they hear on these webinars, a tweetable moment, as they're called. And their tweetable moment was the death of the third-party cookie, which I could totally just see as a bumper sticker for some marketing people. But for technical communicators and information developers who might not be as connected to work that would put them in contact with cookies. Could you talk a little bit about what do we mean by a third-party cookie? Is there such a thing as a first-party cookie and a second-party cookie, third-party cookie? What do you mean by that?
There's not at scale the opportunity to offer a first-party cookie. Many content management systems, and they'll offer the ability to pixel a device, right, when it visits your blog. There's that kind of thing. And I think technical writers need to be exposed to that. They need to ask, if it's not them, they need to ask whoever is handling the administration of the blog about that. But third party is more about what we see happening with Facebook, for example, and advertising networks that track your behavior as you go from site to site. And as a consumer, you probably are very familiar with the time you shop for something on Amazon, and
Barbie Dream House. I shop for the Barbie Dream House.
There you go. There you go. And then you go to Facebook or you open Twitter, and bam, there's an ad for that Barbie Dream House.
Right.
Exactly.
Right?
Which is great until somebody you don't want to see you were looking for that sees your screen and goes, I see what you were searching for, Scott.
Well, that's just it, and that's and it's my opinion, and I'm able to convince the majority of our clients that that's lazy. That's just lazy to try to automatically allow the connectivity that these cookies enable to track somebody and engage in recency and frequency. Old advertising principles that followed us into digital marketing. We have to put that out to pasture, and we have to start to understand that this and the connected home and the connected vehicle, and 5G connectivity and fatter bandwidth to our homes. That's one of the outcomes of COVID, is that we now have fatter pipes coming to our houses because we stream all the time, right?
Right.
Well, all of this just blows open a direct channel from a digital media standpoint directly to your customers. And I think the timing of this, and I'll just say this to pause for a second. This is no different than what you guys may remember when we all of a sudden had the federal government tell our local TV stations they could no longer broadcast in the traditional broadcast spectrum.
Right.
And what they had to shut down over a weekend to be able to put in new cameras and new antennas to put out a digital signal. And then all of a sudden we got to throw out those big cathode ray tube televisions, throw them out, dispose of them, and put these beautiful flat screen televisions in our house. That's what we're doing right now with digital media. Is we're refining the signal, and we're making it much clearer and to the point we're talking about here today, personalized and direct.
That's a great explanation. Thank you, Tim.
That is very, very good. So I look at this issue kind of from both sides. So personalization in terms of an ad popping up because I search for something can be helpful. If I searched for a flight to Brazil and then I booked the flight, and then what pops up is fun stuff to do in Brazil, then that can be helpful, right? And that can be a good thing. But what tends to happen is I search for a flight in Brazil, I booked my flight, and then I get pop-ups of all these things saying, book a flight to Brazil. And I'm like, but I already did. So clearly it's not that helpful when it does that. So I can see how it could be argued that it's a great thing that this is going away because it's kind of annoying sometimes, but it also is, it's going to hurt our experience a little bit because now I'm going to get, flights to India or somewhere that I'm not planning on going. Right.
Right. No, I think look, we can differentiate here where the urgency for personalization is today. It is not on the outbound advertising side. I don't believe. I believe that outbound advertising, display advertising is in major flux right now. I think that's partly caused by the pandemic. I think it's partly caused by the general election, and folks want to avoid the news. They don't, it's redundant. it's not happy. That's a different webinar too, isn't it?
Right.
But I think I think let's shift gears for a second. Customer support, and owning the customer experience when someone is in a moment of need, that turns into a marketing opportunity every time. It always does. And something I can share is just a perfect example of the responsible use of this and the act of personalization is I fly American Airlines as a Texan. I fly two airlines, Southwest Airlines and American. And American, living in Austin, makes me fly through DFW quite often to switch planes. Well, Dallas-Fort Worth is at the tip of not really Tornado Alley, but it gets storms and flights get canceled. And one of those times, my flight got canceled. I could not get anybody to help me at the airport, and I turned into one of those a-holes on Twitter and said, "Thank you, American. I can't get home to see my son's baseball game." And a perfect example here, they sent a direct message to me. They acknowledged publicly, "We hear you, and we will send you a direct message." They knew I was following them. They sent me the DM, and they said, "We see that you were on flight XYZ, and it was headed here at this time. We have gone ahead and rebooked you on another flight." And to me, that's frictionless.
Yeah.
That's seamless. There were 30, 40 people at the line at the counters to get reassigned on another flight. And while I was sitting there, I said, "I'll just try this," right?
Yeah.
And it worked that time. Same thing on inbound phone calls to a call center. It's the same thing. When a customer's reaching out, if you have the pipes connected on the back end, you should have a heads up view on who they are and what's their situation, perhaps what their disposition is, and be able to much more relevantly engage with them.
Right. And the irony here is that you feel like you got a more personal experience by going to social media than you did when you're standing there in the airport.
That's right.
So I don't know if I would call that frictionless. I would say your social experience was personalized and frictionless.
Yeah.
But maybe they could swing back to the personalization in the airport. Again, a whole nother webinar.
Right.
Yeah. This is a good time for us to mention that today's webinar is sponsored by Zoomin Software. Megan, can you tell our audience briefly what Zoomin Software does and how it can help them tackle some of their customer content experience challenges like the ones we're talking about today?
Absolutely. Zoomin helps customers find the answers they need, and it also empowers agents to deliver better support. So somewhat to what Tim was getting at, we deliver an experience both to the customer as well as to the agent. We ingest all of the product content and deliver a unified source of answers wherever your customers are looking for it.
If customers need to connect all those sources together to provide a better experience, what should they do to learn more about Zoomin Software and how that could help them?
They can email me directly, or they can go to our website, which is www.zoominsoftware.com.
Excellent, thank you. And there's some contact information for our viewers in the attachments section of our viewing panel. You just click on the attachments and links button and you can access information, including Megan's contact information and additional content about Zoomin Software, our sponsor of today's show. Tim, thanks for helping us understand these things. I know we've got a few minutes left, and I wanted to touch on a couple of topics and then take some questions from the audience. The first one is these new regulations and corporate policies that we're talking about, the things like the California Consumer Privacy Act. That one, the last one, the CCPA is the, I think the abbreviation for that. Could you tell us briefly, what are the 4 rights that that members who are covered by the CCPA or citizens that are covered by the CCPA enjoy?
Sure, and I mentioned at the top of the call here, but I think it's definitely worth reiterating. You have the ability to ask a brand to you can request to them that I'd like to see all the data you have on me, and I'd like to know what you do with it. Right. You secondly have the opportunity to say, I'm asking you to pause using it. And you see this a lot with social networks, right? Social networks offer you the ability to take a break or to pause for a bit, right? Same thing is just, give me a break. don't put any more ads in front of me. Don't send me any more email, all those things. Lastly, it's what the Scandinavians call digital suicide, or the freedom to be forgotten, right? Yeah. Which is to let a brand know, hey, I don't just want to unsubscribe. I want you to delete everything you have on me. I want to be forgotten. And I think it goes back to it's important to put all those things together, because we shouldn't run from that as some law that's going to put teeth into our ability to reach customers. And again, Megan said it best early, this is about building trust. This is about showing your customer, making sure that they know they have the ability to do these things. And with that, you'll gain more trust. And I would argue, to the point about being helpful, Megan, is that if once they opt in and they say yes in the near term, because there's other things that are going to happen probably 5 years from now that will change this again. But bottom line is, then you can still do a lot of the things you do in terms of retargeting and being helpful to certain customers.
Yeah, I think that's so important to, once they, like you said, they opt in, be helpful, because when you're not helpful, it's annoying. And you've heard this example before, but I one time got a text from an eye doctor that my daughter went to one time. I didn't even remember the eye doctor, but I got a text on my birthday saying happy birthday. They had the ability to personalize to me, but in that case, they probably should not have, right? That was just annoying. So we need to build the trust of our customers and of prospects by using the data we have wisely. Now, on the flip side, when people want to be forgotten, how is this going to impact our ability to communicate with our prospects and with our customers?
I don't know that it's going to be that big of a deal. I mean, in terms of impact, I think, and I say impact, I always think of impact the way it's used often, as if it causes some damage or that it causes challenges. And in this situation, one of the great aspects of being able to connect your data from across a stack, your technology stack, one of the great byproducts of that is that you've deduped all the information you have. You've deduped that entity resolution I was talking about earlier. Once you do that, maybe not the technical writer's purview, but anybody who's in advertising, you're going to spend less on advertising. You're going to reach the same audience.
Yeah.
You'll reach the same audience, but you'll spend 20 to 30% less on your advertising. And there's nothing but benefit at the end of the day on this. I think the marketers that are out there that have relied, I think there's two ways to look at it. Marketers who are in a role, unfortunately, because it's usually not their fault, of being in the job of acquiring new customers, net new customers, and that's the only thing they're asked to do. They're the ones that are going to have some challenges with this, because that's what media was built to do. Media was built to automate all of that. I think those that have understood that the premise of account-based marketing, the premise of data analysis, of A/B testing, right? These are the kinds of things that those that have started to look at the malleability and a less than shotgun approach, which is something we've been talking about for 10 years with social media, right? But not too many people have done it yet. But those that have started on that journey, I think they're going to be the ones who can grasp what we're talking about here. They're the ones that collectively, if again, because you've mentioned technical writers several times, technical writers need to be sitting down with the direct mail team and the social media team and the customer service team and the list goes on and on. If they don't already, they need to go talk to all the disparate departments and business units that are talking to the same customers, right? And do that first. But the magic can come later with connecting all your systems. I think that's where we are with that.
Tim, in fact, it's not just regulations, right, that are impacting our ability to personalize these content experiences. hardware platforms and software makers also play a role. Tell us a little bit about what you mentioned earlier about the impact that Apple's iOS 14, which for our viewers who aren't familiar with Apple products or lingo, is the operating system, the 14th generation of the operating system for the iPhone and the iPad, and may eventually be extended to all the Macintosh computers as well. How are the changes that Apple's iOS 14 have introduced impacting our ability to access and use personal data to create these individualized content experiences?
Well, I think in Apple's case, what it's going to do is it's going to require you to start to look at Apple in much of the same way you've looked at Google and Facebook over the last 10 years, how you've looked at Amazon over the last 5 years with Amazon Media Services.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to see. I mean, this is, again, the past is prologue, we say around Brain+Trust quite a bit. And many of us can remember when certain stretches of the highways around us were suddenly populated by big box retailers, right? And those big box retailers were leveraging an efficient distribution system, an efficient fulfillment system, and advertising to be able to build some type of seamless and repetitive experience across all that real estate. And that's exactly what we're seeing right now. I mean, let the elephant in the room is Amazon. No doubt about it.
Yeah.
Amazon has got it. Amazon has had, hockey stick growth year over year now.
Yep.
The pandemic has only compounded that for them.
Mm-hmm.
And what you're going to see is the biggest players are going to start saying, I'm only going to play so nice with my competitors. My co-opetition. I think is a better way to say it. We're all in the same game now, right? We're all in the same game where we need more people to spend time on our networks, and we need them to transact through our networks. So you asked the question about Apple, Scott, and I think what we're seeing from Apple is posturing. I think Apple TV Plus is a harbinger for things to come, right? If they can get you while you're sitting on your couch to stare and consume content through a paid channel, more often than not, rather than Netflix or Amazon,
right?
That's a win. If they can get so many minutes from you per day, the way they're going to calculate it, and do the same with your phone, and do the same with CarPlay in your vehicle. This is what they're trying to do before Google can do it, right? With YouTube subscriptions and Android in the car and Google Home and Amazon, obviously, with Echo Dots and Amazon.com and Alexa in the car. I mean, this is just how it's going to play out. And I would say all the things those companies are doing, you have the opportunity as a marketer right now to capitalize on those efficiencies, absolutely, and start to hedge your bet between some of them. But you also have the opportunity to start to build a proprietary experience directly with your customers, with email, with text messaging, with a mobile app, with things that you have more control over.
Megan, why don't you ask the last question that we have, and then I'll take one from the audience. If any audience members have yet to ask a question and would like to in the final minutes, please do so using the Ask a Questions tab located in your webinar viewing panel.
Sure. So I really just want to bring this back to the information developers who are likely to be watching this talk show today. And those are going to be content strategists, technical writers, folks who are there might be some marketers as well, but a lot of content developers aren't marketers. So when we think about the marketing team, do we just need to buddy up with the marketing team and make sure we're complying with these laws? Are there specific things that we need to think about when writing product content specifically and disseminating product content that we need to be concerned about that maybe the marketing team wouldn't know? What do you say about that?
Well, it's to my earlier point about disparate business units starting to unify and collaborate, right? To build a reporting structure together. This is where analytics, we talk a lot about building a true north of insights, right? And customer centricity. If everybody across the technical writers, the content strategists and content producers, and the marketing team, if those are separate, and customer service, and IT, who is basically in a support role internally. If all of them have their eye with that unified view of customer analytics, they're already using the same data across all these departments, but they're using different systems to do it. If they unify it and they manage what they have in the cloud and what they have in software as a service, and they do so in a more liberal way across the organization, allowing each business unit to build insights specific for their use case. I think that true north, that customer centricity is what will empower everybody to be much more effective with whatever it is they're doing, much more relevant with the content they produce and the exchanges they hold with customers, the decisions they make on not just content, but product development and customer service as well.
Just two quick questions from the audience before we leave today's show. One, what if you're a technical communicator and you learn from one of your customers that they would like to take advantage of opting out, and you don't have a process for doing that yet? How should a company take a request from somebody that maybe doesn't come through a formal channel? There's no channel set up for them to ask. They just randomly found somebody from the company and sent them an email saying, hey, could you tell me what information you have available on me? Should we be searching for new tools to provide this, or should we be looking for the existing tool makers that we use to provide these services so that we can respond to these things?
Well, it's just like artificial intelligence, right? The tools that you currently use, or you have been using for the last 5+ years, they all portend to have AI baked into them, right?
Whitewash.
Yet another webinar opportunity, right? No, it's what I mentioned earlier about consent management platforms. Consent management platforms that allow you to seamlessly handle those inbound requests. To have having a privacy policy, right? A privacy policy in place that will usually have an email address and or a URL to a page where you can interact with that consent management platform or submit a formal request. And the good news is that, like everything, just like it happened in Europe with GDPR, and it's starting to manifest this way in California, is as long as you're doing those two things, right? If you haven't done what seems like a heavy IT lift to integrate all your systems, if you put a consent management platform in place, which could take you as long as 2 weeks, really, as fast as those systems can be implemented today, and you invest, maybe talking to general counsel's office, or maybe somebody who ladders up to the CMO, who's already had to look at this because they've probably been briefed by Facebook and others on privacy policies, is to be able to build that unified space that everybody can refer to. So I think looking for those, if you're that technical writer right now, if you're that technical communicator, I think look for where those may exist today. You may find on the privacy policy on your website that it's in there already. There's already an email address, a phone number, or a URL that points to something. Yeah.
Okay, two other quick questions. Why are companies able to force us to quote unquote opt out rather than opt in? Is that a regulation, or is it just the way that some companies do business?
So why are they forced?
Why are they forced to opt out of a subscription rather than opting in? Is that just the way people do business, or is that part of a regulation?
Well, the way these laws are written and the way these policies will be is, they explicitly say you have to have the policy in place. You have to have consent from your customers. Consent, which is them opting in, them saying it's okay. You have to have that before you process the data. Now, let's be honest. We've been doing what we've been doing a long time, and that's not possible. So the opt-in or the double opt-in, this is what you see Salesforce and HubSpot and some others that have, they've tried to put more rigor around how you manage what's in your CRM. And it's the same thing as just being able to, that's part of the laws is getting someone to opt in. Yeah.
Sorry about that. A phone came on for whatever reason and started broadcasting a news program that we do not need to have broadcast on today's show. Should knowledge-centered service in customer support, this sounds like a marketing person wrote this, should knowledge-centered service and customer support be combined with analytic-centered service?
I think it's customer centric at the end of the day. I think we need to quit
Good
talking
answer.
to
ourselves.
well, yeah, no,
Yeah.
we talked about it earlier, didn't we? Did we? As you know, it's very natural for people to think analytics. Let's look at the performance of media. Let's look at what's working and what's not working, and that's that. And the problem is that we need to have a deeper, more deliberate conversation about how our customers feel, what our customers are telling us, right? Let's tell customer stories internally. Let's leverage customer stories externally. Let's make decisions based on that. Part of that is going to be analytics. Absolutely. It'll be analytics in the legacy way, the incumbent way that we've been doing it, but it has to be richer with true customer feedback and customer stories.
Tim, that was great. I think you did a great job of packing in a lot of value in this half-hour show. So thank you for doing that. We're out of time, though. So I would say Megan and I would like to thank you for making time to be our guest on the show today. And thanks to our audience as well. Here. Thanks a lot. We appreciate it.
And for the audience, thanks, Tim. For the audience, make sure that you tell us how we did. Use the Rate This tab that is in your viewing panel. Give us a 5-star rating and add some comments. We like to see how we did.
Please do.
And before you go, I encourage you to be on the lookout in your email inbox for an invitation to our next Content Advantage show, which will take place Tuesday, October the 13th. We've got a great show lined up. We're going to chat with Tina Kister, who's extremely interesting. You're going to love the show, about the need to understand science-based design. You're going to learn how to translate visual stimuli into language and ideas that actually transform beliefs and behavior. And we'll be talking a lot about the science behind how we know we're doing that and how to do it well. So until then, be safe, be well, and keep doing good work. We look forward to seeing you on an upcoming show with Megan and I. Thanks for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks everyone. Bye. Ensure your customers find the answers they need with Zoomin. Bring together product content from all teams and sources to deliver a unified, personalized content experience. Check us out at www.zoominsoftware.com.